Hey guys, good morning. It's Guido. It's time for coffee talk. I've got my coffee. It's early on Sunday morning. We're going to talk some tanks. So come on in, have a seat in the office, and we'll get to this thing. I decided to forego the green screen today, and we'll just go with the office setting. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. I am an iterative person, so if things are better one way, I'll certainly consider going that way. I thought for coffee talk, it's to me, it's kind of a hey, come on in, sit down, hang out in the office, and we'll discuss some World of Tanks stuff. Or maybe I'll put the green screen on and I'll just make myself giant. Although my hand just went out of the screen there, I'll make myself as big as that Turtle Mark One right there. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Somebody mentioned my haircut. I think it was Pilgrim. My grooming, actually, not my haircut. Stop looking at my grooming. I go. All right. Hey, the 100th episode. Any tier 8 premium tank in the store. Winner was Heraldrick Knight. Heraldrick Knight. And his comment about the whether David or Dasha would win, if you remember that, the contest from last week. He said David wins. This made me laugh every time. I don't know why. I just got this kind of funny mental picture of this going on. David wins because he rolls out of his cot in Bovington every day, no makeup, no button up, all mustache, and talks tanks like a boss. I just had this picture that David actually lives in Bovington on a little cot somewhere in the back amongst a couple, engine blocks and a gun barrel. And he just sort of rolls off the cot, hits the ground, laces up his boots, and heads out. No makeup. So Heraldrick Knight, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I like to laugh, so if somebody I know that's like a weird little thing, but I thought that was great. Okay, so anyway, because I'm arbitrary and capricious at the best of times, in the best of times, Heraldrick Knight wins because I said so. All right, what do we got? We got channel news, missions, and specials, and then subjects du jour. I think we have an interesting discussion at the end. Subjects du jour has got some good stuff. We got the November sneak preview coming up. We've got the HE rebalance, a little discussion on that. Double barrel tanks, talk very briefly on those, and then the state of the game and such. Specifically, the release of the Turtle, and also my review of the Turtle. Now, my full review will be out on Monday, so that's tomorrow. Check that out. That'll be the full review. You'll have 3 or 4 days to buy it if that's what you're waiting for some reason. Guido's take on the Turtle. I did have a quick review yesterday, which got some comments, and we're going to discuss some of those. Mainly because that was a really good game. Unfortunately for you guys who are watching my stream, it happened after I stopped the stream. Did a couple things and came back a few hours later and played a couple games and then dropped a 5,500 damage game in the Turtle. But we'll talk about that because I think that was a bit of an impetus, and then there's some other community contributors saying some other things about it. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So my next stream will be tomorrow, actually, the 28th, it looks like, from 0900 to 1200 Central Time. So look out for that. Unless something strange happens, I should be streaming for about 3 hours. I'll have more T14 codes to give away. So that'll be cool. All right, let's move on to the missions and specials. Well, as usual, we're going to start out by shilling, right? Because I'm just a sellout. Here we go. Really, you know what? There's not a lot. There's only one deal I thought was kind of interesting that you might consider in here, but the rest of it is pretty standard. They do have this multinational Rudy. Remember, they just released that mechanic by which you can change a tank from one nationality to the other specific tanks. Actually, that reminds me of something I did want to talk about. So slight detour here, off on a slight tangent. Here's my question about that, and you probably have the same question in your mind. Exactly what kind of tanks is this going to happen for? So the Rudy was clearly always a Polish tank, in my mind anyway, Polish crew. Obviously a Russian design, but it was put on the Russian line and then it was changed so that you could swap between the two. So is that the criteria by which it will happen? For example, the Black Dog is an American design, but there were never really any American crews driving it. Those were always German crews. See what I'm saying? Is it simply a tank that another nationality built? For example, the Heavy Tank 6 Number 6 is a obviously German Tiger that was shipped to Japan, but it wasn't really run in by German crews. Will that one swap back and forth? So that's kind of my question. I think the T25, the Czech tank, the little T25 is another potential option. The Tier 5 premium one without the autoloader is on the German tech tree, but it's a Czech design, although that one was used by Germans. So, that's my question. I'm wondering, what is the exact criteria? We only got one of them so far with the Rudy, but anyway, there you go. I'm just kind of curious how that's going to go down. We'll see. Who knows? It's wargaming. I don't know. It could be a grab bag. In fact, there's probably not going to be a criteria. It's going to be whatever they feel. But it would be interesting if they sort of wrote down their thoughts. I say this a lot, and it's easy to say. The problem being that it takes time for someone to sit down and write out their plan, and they may not have one. It's just, you can't have a plan for every single thing, even though Guido says it would be interesting to know what their inner workings are on things like that. What else do we have? We've got the Turtle, obviously, is for sale. You got 4 days on that, so tomorrow when my review comes out, you'll have 3 days if you want to pull the trigger on that bad boy. What I wanted to say about that, we'll get to it in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. And that's all that's going on. The featured on the gold, there's no real specials other than these gold packs, which we talked about last week, and the standard quick starter kit. Really nothing going on with premium days, although coupons work. One thing I did want to say that was interesting here. Excuse me. Got coffee hiccups going on. Look at my coupons I have. Goodness. Should have ate all that steak last night. All right. It was the steak. Lots of coupons. Sometimes, I don't know that. I don't know what I wanted to say about the coupons other than those are really, they just sort of randomly show up for all kinds of reasons that I can't really ever figure out. All right, this is what I wanted. Is this it? No, it's the next one. The TOG's on sale, which is really what I wanted to talk to you about on this. I spent 10 minutes talking about how there's nothing to talk about. All right, so the Turtle is 43 bucks. If you click on it and click purchase and you happen to have a 20% coupon like I do, you can bring it down to $35.19, which is okay for a tier 8. Remember though that the VK750, whatever it is, 2 or 1 or whatever the rear turreted tier 8 one that recently came out, you could get that down to about 35, I believe, as well. And I think that's a more flexible tank, or not necessarily, but more flexible tank than the Turtle Mark 1, and it's about the same price. So that's a kind of comparison. But 35 bucks. What I was looking at though was this package. If you don't have a TOG, now the TOG, okay, it sort of actually plays into what we're going to talk about later about the state of the game and slow tanks. But if you really want a TOG and you don't have one, this is actually not a bad deal because it's 51 bucks for the two of them. But if you add a discount or a coupon, 20% looks like, down to 41 bucks, which means you get your 35 discounted dollar Turtle that I just showed you, and for another 7 bucks you throw a TOG on, which they sell for 18 normally. So really not a bad idea if you're looking for a TOG and a Turtle, which I realize that's probably a fairly limited set of people, but I just wanted to throw that out because as a total deal it's actually not that bad. There's my shilling. I have shilled. Let's move on to the missions. And well, actually, before we get to the UI, let's go ahead and just jump into the November sneak preview, giving thanks and tanks. What's coming up in November? We're kind of entering into that holiday season where lots of different events are going to go on. That reminds me of another tangent. Somebody posted on the forum that they're really irritated that it had been so long since we'd had a tank marathon to get a tank. And I was thinking about that, and I said, yeah, that. And I went, wait a minute. Frontlines has been a 10-month tank marathon with 4 different premiums available. So it's been exactly 0 months since we've had a tank marathon. It just happens to be in Frontline. The next episode, or the last episode's coming up in November. Anyway, so for November, we've got premium shop offers. Look at all these different things. And let's see. Buy 30 days of Watt and get a T45. We got the T78 coming back for sale. The T27 coming back for sale. The TS5 coming back for sale. Interesting. Frontline vehicles be the LT432, Scorpion, Lance, and ISU 130. I don't know about that. Oh great, more EBR 75s. Fantastic. That's what the last iteration of Frontline needs. When everyone's just about done with grinding out their ranks, how many of these do you think are going to be raging around? People just goofing off. Cromwell B in the 1357. So lots of good tanks coming up. Player tank class tournament missions. That's no big deal. These are the specials on the weekends. Lots of times 2s and XPs and crew. I think the key one is the 8th to the 12th with gold discounts and XP conversion. So that's probably one if you got a lot of gold sitting around. Interesting though that gold sync is coming up before Christmas, when a Christmas box event, in theory, is going to come out. I asked a question on the Discord and I got crickets. So I said, hey, what can you tell me about Christmas? And I haven't heard a single thing. So unknown, and there's nothing in here about it either. There's some gold discounts on the 29th, which is I believe the day after Thanksgiving, and we're talking about Black Friday coming up, and then we're really getting into the Christmas event season right there. Berlin Wall on 1 to 9, there's going to be something for that, special missions and whatnot. Tank Rewards is going to go on again. It starts on the 1st. Remember, that's the missions that you go to the website, and then you get various levels of prizes. So that's going till the 26th, starting on the 1st. Tank Mastery, whatever, Trick or Treat, that's currently going on. Actually, that's November 8 to 11. Oh, that's the reward mission. So we'll talk about it in just a second, but in the UI, you've got your Trick or Treat missions, and then there's a reward for the winning team, and that happens on the weekend of the 8th to the 11th. Frontline, the last week then, starts on the 18th of November. Goes up to about Thanksgiving or so. November to 20 December, more on tracks, okay, whatever, and then the Black Friday specials actually start on the 22nd. Isn't that interesting? Now, so is this also covering those? Sort of, yes. Interesting. So Black Friday specials starts about here where the Cromwell shows up on this list, and maybe even these guys for the front line, and then but its list shows the BTSV. I mean, it's unique, but whatever. The Hydrostat, Panzer IV Hydrostat, you know, these are rare tanks, but I don't know how many people are really jonesing to get these two things other than hardcore collectors. Black Friday specials, Shadow tanks, oh boy. And what is this? I don't know what that is, Shadow tanks. Are they talking about the black tanks? I think that's probably what they are, the T-34B black and the Mutz B or whatever it is, the black version. How many of those do we have? Is there 2 black tanks? 2 or 3? I don't know how many there are. I know those 2, but I don't know if there's any more. Which are they going to add more to that list? That was a bit of a flop. You know, that came out 3 or 4 years ago, and there was a bunch of angst about just taking a T-34B, turning it black, and selling it as a separate tank. And actually the IS-6 has a black version too, doesn't it? I believe it does. I think there is an IS-6B. Because it's sort of passé now, because you've got all the different options for putting camo on the tanks. On those, I don't even know if you can change those. The black ones, can you take the black off? I don't know. Then you get into the whole thing, well, if you win a T-34 and you have a T-34B, then you end up getting the T-34 and not the gold because you don't have the B. But now you have 2 of the exact same tank, which I have multiple versions of that. The Defender and the 252U, T-34, T-34 black, the black Mutz, the Mutz. The list goes on. I have the IS-6, I think, and the IS-6B, I believe. So there you have it. All right, so that is the November sneak preview. Lots of stuff coming up right there. The Halloween event. I can't find anything here about it. I thought there was going to be some kind of mode, right? Halloween mode. There seemed to be indications of it, but I have not seen a single thing about it. I did hear one mention of something like that from Michael Lovin on a Watt Weekly, which he kind of shrugged and said, you know, we're still planning on doing it. It's going to happen after Halloween. So I don't know if they had a problem with the mode, or they're so busy with other stuff, or I don't know. You remember it last year, right? It was the spooky mode, and there was green goo you had to collect or some such thing. I barely played it. I mean, you know my opinion on most of the modes. I could really care less about most of the modes. But some people really like them. And I think that's what most people thought was happening, and now there's just Cricketsville on that one. So unknown there. Let's see, where are we? Strongholds. Let's talk about that. Well, all right, I said strongholds, but that is not what I meant. I meant scavenger hunt. I had SH written on my little list of things right here to talk about, and it's not strongholds, it's scavenger hunt. Which is coming back on November 1st. Got a new scavenger hunt. You'll see some videos from me for that, so you'll be able to collect a bunch more personal reserves and do the old scavenger hunt thing. Maybe even find a new community contributor to to watch. Maybe you can talk to him. I don't know. We're gonna have a community contributor, date night. We're all gonna come meet these guys, and I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. It's not a good joke, so we'll just let it go. I think I'm starting to get hyped up now. I'm on my second or third cup of coffee, getting a little loose, feeling good. All right, here we go. Strongholds. We're not talking about strongholds, all right? Stop asking. Scavenger hunt and rank battles. Rank battles. Well, starts tomorrow on the 28th. Goes for about 2 weeks, I believe. And I think I'm going to try it. But the problem being is it's in prime time in the evening. And I don't end up playing a whole bunch. You don't see me on in the evening a whole lot. And that's just not a time I can really develop. I can devote. I can't develop it either, but I cannot devote it to playing the game. I devote a lot of time to the game, obviously, but it's usually not at that time. The other thing about it is it's tier 10, which in my opinion is terrible gameplay. The game breaks down at tier 10. The mechanics don't work as well as it does at tier 8, maybe tier 6 to tier 8. My opinion only. But I might give it a shot because the prize, the potential prize, is it not on this list? Here it is. This German tank, which looks pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. A unique tier 9 vehicle, maximum reward. Now, this is really convoluted, this whole thing. And I took a while to try to break it down, and I'm just going to give you the Cliff's notes on it. And if I say something wrong, then apologies, fix me down below. But I'm not going to give you any real deep details on it. But the gist of this thing is that you're trying to get to the highest league that you can by getting through 3 divisions. There's a qualifying round, which is 20 battles, which in one area tells you you're going to be put into a league, but then if you read this, it sounds like you don't really get your league designation until you get past Division 1, which is the last division. And then there's points involved, which will give you certain prizes, and then if you get enough points in the 2 seasons that are coming up, then you will have enough points to get your prize tank. That's the general idea that I'm getting out of this without breaking it down. I mean, imagine that you have created a game mode that requires someone to dig through this. To understand what they're doing. Now, it's not rocket science. I'm not telling you it's impossible. I just sort of scratch the head and say, does it have to be that hard? Now, this has been iterative, like I talk about and like. They have changed it along the way. We did miss the last season because we were told we were too small. We're too little. Didn't work. You can't play. You're too little. So you have to. The big kids will hurt you. So go sit on the bench. Oh man, we had a school here. It's kind of a bummer. We had a school, one of the smaller ones out in the sticks, had to cancel their football season because they don't have any older kids. Almost their entire team is younger that are playing, and they were too small and they're getting hurt. So they actually canceled their season for safety. Like, well, we'll reattack next year when we have bigger kids as they get older. But the hurricane has really messed up a lot of communities around here, so people are moving around a lot. I thought that was a bummer though for those kids. Anyway, that was a good tangent right there. I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but you start in Division 3 and you move up and you get chevrons. You get chevrons by winning. If you lose and you're number 1, you get a chevron. If you lose and you're number 2 or 3, experience-wise, you don't lose a chevron. And if you're less than those guys, then you lose a chevron. So it's an idea of you're trying to advance as fast as possible, and then they do a calculation at the end on how you did, which basically comes down to how fast you went through, based on how many battles it took you to get to the end. Now, like I said, this is all, you can certainly figure it out. There are some permanent ranks that you cannot lose. There are ranks that have shields that will let you lose a couple and not drop back, because if you lose chevrons, you can see what the number of chevrons you need, that you fall back. Which is all fine. That's all the specific game mechanics. But remember several weeks ago, maybe last month, I mentioned a bit, and I think it was before we got canceled for the last ranked battles. I noted that there was a thing called role experience that they were looking at. You earn role experience after battle if you not only damage and destroy enemies or help your teammates, but also act according to the typical role of your vehicle. For example, a heavy tank must block shells and damage vehicles in close combat, while low-armored tank destroyers must deal maximum damage at long range. And then it has all these divisions and then talks about which vehicles are supposed to do that. And they supposedly get, I'm assuming, extra experience. So this appears to be an overlay over top the normal experience. So I thought, what's a sniper? Well, apparently it's only 2 vehicles at tier 10. It's the Grill and the Sturv. High caliber support is the 2 Great Britain monster tanks. Heavy destroyers are assault destroyers, apparently, to include the Foch. The Kranagvagan is a heavy destroyer, apparently. Light attack vehicle. A light attack vehicle are mediums, apparently. So tracked scout, there you go. Wheeled scout is going to be clearly 1 tank. Oh, I see. Why is what's the difference between a track scout and a wheeled scout? This ought to be fascinating. I didn't read this yet. First spotting, assisting allied damage upon spotting while remaining unspotted. Dealing damage to vehicles in the view range. I bet the difference is this one doesn't care if you're unspotted. Assistance in destroying enemy vehicles upon spotting or destroying tracks, dealing damage. And oh. I read that to mean that a wheeled scout is going to get extra points for both spotted and unspotted spotting. Don't you? That's what it seems like to me. Because it doesn't really get specific. It just says upon spotting. Whereas if you're in your track scout, sorry, you're going to have to do it while unspotted. See, this is Now, I don't know that. I'm not, okay, so we won't go off on too much of a tangent. I don't actually know that. But that's what it looks like, doesn't it? That is exactly what it looks like. That's why this kind of thing is so dopey. So dopey. It is. It's just plain old dopey. Dealing damage, so high caliber sport, dealing damage from close and medium distances, but it has a big danger. The amount of experience earned for this role depends on the distance between you and the enemy. The lower the distance, the more experience you earn for the damage dealt. You will not earn role experience for damaging enemies at a distance of 445 meters or greater. That's left for these guys, snipers. You know, here's the thing, Wargaming. A lot of your maps don't support this for that particular tank. The team makeup may not support that. The situation of the deployment may not support that. I don't know, man. All right, so I just wanted to mention that because it's just weird. Maybe it works. Maybe it's been fantastic over on EU and RU, and this is a great thing. We'll find out. I wonder if it's going to be broken out so that you know. Each successful act, oh, here it is, marked with a special icon in your battle events. The exact amount of role experience received is displayed. Well, there you go. I answered my own question. Whoa. Okay. Yep. E times D, experience for damaging, experience for destroying, plus the experience for assisting, times roll coefficients. Does it have to be that complicated? I mean, a lot of you are looking at it going, that's not complicated math, Guido. I got it, noted, but it's... Anyway, you can win a lot of stuff. You can qualify. You get 1,000,000 credits. That's pretty cool. If you get through Division 3, I'm assuming getting through it and finishing it, you get these things. 2,200 bonds, 2,600 for Division 2, 3,200 for Division 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 bonds potentially at stake here, so that's actually pretty cool. And then the numbers, ooh, look, you can get some, you get a badge. And then eventually you can work your way up into the annual reward, which is this tank right here. Small reward for 3 rank. Maximum reward for 12 rank gives you the premium. So you're going to need 12 points somehow, and these are the tokens that you get. So if you get to Gold League in First Division, that's 6, 10, 13, that's 14 points. Are you well past the maximum reward? I don't know. I didn't break that down. You're going to have to take a look at that. Maybe I'll look at it deeper and try to figure it out later on. But there you go. That's the general idea of ranked battles as it is coming up. Interesting stuff. Let's move on to subjects du jour. Psych. Let's just blast through. There's not really much going on in the UI. There's the trick or treat that I mentioned earlier. I have finished all of mine. It's pretty easy to do, and you have until the 1st of November, so you've still got about 4 days to knock that out. Then we have the E50 Aufs M is on track. We have Tank Mastery. These are the standard mastery things that you remember. You have to do your codes for those. India. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Probably tomorrow, I'm hoping, there'll be a new Twitch Prime gift care package. HIJ, right? Juliet. So Juliet should be out pretty soon. Apparently has a Halloween theme to it. So my assumption is it's going to happen before or the week of Halloween. So keep an eye out for that. Player Tank Class Right. That's the standard stuff there. Also, you need a code for that one. Tier Challenge missions. That was this weekend's missions. And remember, they're broken down by tier, so you've got to watch out for that. Not a whole lot. You're getting some kits. At least over here on the tier 8 to 10, you get some large kits. Tier Challenge, other missions. What else we got here? These are just, there's not much going on here. Hunt the sheriffs and yada yada. Still thank you for your service is going on. And then premium missions are premium missions. All right, now we're going to subjects du jour. All right, hope you got your coffee. I got mine reloaded. I got my nice, is that, no, it's got it on both sides. I got my nice, you know, pain is weakness leaving the body. Also, glasses are required. Unless you have served, then it's probably arthritis. So there you go. Got that. Sent from one of you guys a while back. I appreciate that. I've got my World of Tanks shirt from D-Day Conneaut. I'm all blinged out with World of Tanks stuff. So now let's start talking about the HE rebalance. First thing I'm going to say about this is don't get too worked up about super test, test, or sandbox. I suppose it goes sandbox, super test, test, right? Sandbox, super test, common test. It depends on what they're doing. Sometimes they sandbox stuff that they would normally super test because they want to get more regular players looking at it. And that's kind of a throw it at the wall and see if it sticks kind of idea right there. So HE, they've decided, needs to be rebalanced. They've gone through 2 iterations. They just went to the 3rd iteration. The first iteration, and it says right here, increased HE shell damage 40% over the first iteration of testing. After the first iteration of testing, we bumped up damage 75% for HE shells, and the result was that they were excessively efficient. Well, there you go. But that's the thing, right? It's a sandbox. You want to test the parameters, and they're looking for the edges. So they said, all right, 75%. Yep, turns out that's too much. Probably could have told you that, but, you know, they got the data, and yes, they have confirmed that 75% was too much. But in addition to that, they're using the new mechanics of it, right? So they're not doing, hey, with the penetration and that kind of thing. Reduced splash damage, some other things, reduced, did that, this, and the other. So here's a digest of other information. This is what piqued my interest and I thought was interesting, maybe for you guys. Between the first and second iteration, HE shells had effectiveness from minimal to excessive. So the first one was not so much, and the second one was way too much, and now they're trying to dial into that middle, the correct place. Fantastic. That's how you do testing. It will not be, there will be no test of any values above the second iteration, as it's considered to be the very limit. Sounds like it's over the limit, actually, but that's parsing words, I guess. The mechanics themselves are working as expected. That's the specifics of not penetrating and the spalling and the burst radius and how that's supposed to work. They should be something in the middle of this range of effectiveness. I'm sorry, I didn't add the rest of it. Currently, the only thing needed is the right values, so the damage. Splash damage changes should be most noticed by low armor vehicles, while spall damage changes most affect well armored vehicles. I don't really know what that means, most noticed, as in I don't get pinned and absolutely destroyed, but I still take a lot of damage. I already know, the low armored vehicles already notice splashed. Well, maybe they don't notice splash damage. I don't really know what they're getting at right there, to be honest. It's understood vehicles with HE gameplay. This was what actually specifically made my Spidey senses turn on, my Guido senses. It's understood vehicles with HE gameplay, such as derps, looking at you, T49, KV2, etc., M4 with the derp, are important to the community. You think? And this will be considered when individual changes for these tanks will be worked on. This will be considered when individual changes for these tanks will be worked on. Oh, really? What does that mean? Also, what about artillery? Guido says and thinks what's going to happen here is they're going to make HE shells more reliable and essentially more viable, and you're going to get a lot more of them shot. A slight example of that over here on Armored Patrol, which is talking about the same thing, as I find it here. Oh, Guido, what have you done? Maybe it's on status, but is it on status? There we go. Sorry, over on status report. Looking forward, let's see. Stand by, I gotta find it. Dang it, hold on. All right, I figured it out. Goodness gracious, it's hard. It's early in the morning. All right. Number 5, removed the improved HE shells for USA light tanks and Japanese heavy tanks. In bold, this is not a balance measure, and we are not trying to remove this type of shells forever. Remember, this is a translation. We're talking about essentially gold rounds, even though they don't call it, they said improved HE shells. I'm assuming they mean the gold rounds. Rather, within the testing, we are adjusting the efficiency of standard HE shells. Based on those adjustments, we are planning to change the improved HE shells during prior testing. This was the best part. Duh. This is the duh moment, right? Improved HE shells of these vehicles were used excessively. You think? It's a test server. Of course they were. Why were they even in there to begin with? Frankly, they're used excessively in the regular game and pub battles. even though you tell us they're not, they are. It doesn't take much excessively when you're paying to add, even if it's just paying more credits, to add extra damage onto a shell. So this is probably the biggest no-brainer I've ever seen in my life, but at least they realized it and they changed it. I thought the write-up was pretty funny. Pretty funny. So lessons, thanks to your feedback. Now the result of firing an HE shell has become more predictable. Oh great. And firing at vulnerable spots of vehicles provides a more predictable result. Is that really what we wanted out of HE? It's been 7 or 8 years since we've been playing this game. The HE game mechanic is one of the central mechanics of the game. There are people who play specific tanks, and that's their main tanks that they like to play because of that mechanic. I cannot for the life of me understand what we're trying to get at here. You know, what it really exposes quite a bit is RNG and its effect on the game, which you might say, well, Guido, you know what, you just talked about how the HE mechanic is a 7-year mechanic and it's been around, and so has the 25% RNG. Okay, fair enough. But I think we can move around the edges of that instead of throwing out the baby out with the bathwater, which is what Wargaming constantly does. Instead of adjusting some HE stuff, maybe a KV2 shouldn't do 950 freaking damage when it pens. Maybe a T49 shouldn't do, 900 damage. Maybe it should only do 600 or 750. And a slight adjustment to see if that's supposedly a problem. Maybe in order to make your HE more predictable, it needs to have less RNG. This is essentially reducing the RNG by completely changing the mechanic, as opposed to addressing the actual RNG problem of plus or minus 25% in the entire game. We're kind of demonizing HE as some kind of problem, which nobody thought we had. You know what I mean? Who thought we had an HE problem? Clearly, some of the developers did. I don't remember the last time I had a video put out by somebody bemoaning the fact that the HE mechanic is ruining the game. I think what they are addressing is a symptom of RNG without actually addressing the disease, which is too much RNG. Maybe I'm wrong. And frankly, the greatest abusers of the HE problem have always been artillery, which has changed multiple times over the years because it is a problematic game mechanic, especially when allowed to be lobbed across the entire map, which is a whole different subject, but still, when it hits, it kind of did some of the same stuff, which they changed by reducing pen values and such so that you didn't constantly get pens. So I don't know. I can't for the world of me really figure out what the point of all of this is. And I feel like at the end of the day, what's probably going to happen is bad players, mediocre to bad players, are going to end up relying on it a lot more, precisely because it is more reliable. I don't know. It seems like a fairly straightforward result of something like that. If I'm having trouble penning in my regular AP round and I'm a free-to-play player and not very good, and I can't figure out how to get damage, but I know that HE damage is going to be more reliable, well, I'm going to use it, aren't I? It's I don't know, guys. I mean, seriously, put it down in the comments section. Now, what do you think? What is it? Is this a good deal? Is this something that you've been, oh man, I really feel like HE needs to be changed, and I'm so glad they're on it. I don't know, man. I'm not sure what we're trying to get at. I'm really not. Okay. Let's see. Oh, state of the game. Now we're going to get into that. Before that, though, remember, I just wanted to mention this. I said we'd talk about double-barrel guns, double-barrel tanks. I think that's a subject for a little while later. Again, I'm not going to comment too much on it off the test servers. It's a mechanic I kind of go, do we really need that? But it is more content, so I do appreciate content. What I will say about it for you who are planning, remember it comes off of the KV3. That line is going to split off of the KV3, even though it's called an IS an IS version 2 or whatever, and an IS 3.2 and an ST1.2, they're actually coming off of the KV3 line. So if you're going to build up experience in order to immediately get into that IS2, which will be the tier 8, remember it's a 3-tank mini line coming off there from tier 7 IS3, sorry, KV3, no, sorry, KV3. Go ahead and unclick your little button on your crew thing so that all the experience doesn't go to the crew, and you start to build up that experience so you can immediately unlock the IS2, IS version 2, IS, I don't know how it is. The double-barreled IS at tier 8, how about that? Okay, man, let's get into the turtle and the state of the game, and I think some interesting discussion. All right, this is going to be kind of a wide-ranging discussion right here, since I figure out how I get that up where you can see it. State of the game, the turtle, and community contributors, kind of all wrapped in together, / premiums being released, and what that's doing to the game. So, the way this started, at least in my mind, I say this started like it's some big thing. It's not. It's just the way this discussion was germinated in the brain, if you will, is I released, first of all, I got the turtle. Then I played it 20 games, and then I did a quick review on Saturday. That was yesterday. And I showed a 5,500 damage game. I did very well in that game. It was a very permissive game. The enemy team was very complacent, and they basically played into the strengths of the turtle perfectly, and a lot of things went well, and it was a great game. And that's how great games usually go, most of them. So I sent that out. I said, quick review, here's the turtle, and I discussed some of the weaknesses. It's slow. I admitted in the video itself that, look, this is a very permissive, everything went right for me. I just wanted to show a good game, and I enjoyed this. And the turtle is actually a decent tank. But it has its limitations, which is what I said. My full review is tomorrow. I'll say much the same thing. I got some interesting comments on that. One in particular talking about, hey, why don't you show a regular game instead of showing, this great game, because this thing's not very good. I'm like, all right, fair enough. But this was the good game, and I made a video of a good game, which is kind of what you do at times. And if you want to know how I did, then you can take a look at the full review where I fully admit and look at the stats. But here's the stats, right? Tiny sample size. I've played it 20 times. Okay? Hard to do 100 battles and come back with a relevant review of the tank in any kind of reasonable time. It won't even be for sale by the time I got done doing that. But I think 20 gives you a good feeling for the tank, and I've been playing the game for 7 years, so I can probably make a pretty good assessment of a turtle, of any tank really, after 20 battles. 55% win rate, 1,162 average experience, averaging 2,444 damage. 2.12 on the damage ratio, destruction at 3.1, armor efficiency actually reasonable at 0.85. That means it's got armor that actually works. Survival at 50%. Blah, 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 blah. Do I expect those numbers to stay there for my Tier 8 Casemate TD gameplay? No. I expect them to come down a little bit. Are they really good right now? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in its element, it actually is a good tank. Whatever you think of it, whatever you think of the meta, whatever you think of the relative merits of spending money or not spending money, it is in fact, much like the British light tanks, in its element, a good tank. That's just the truth. Whatever you want to think about the rest of the game situation. That being said, a Turtle Mark 1 with its slow speed, being a casemate, and all of those things that make it relatively poor in the current meta are 100% true. 100% true. But that doesn't change the fact that it's actually a pretty decent tank for what it is. Now, that brings us to another comment that I had on, I think, the same video, talking about another community contributor and what his take on it was. Sidetrack slightly right here. In general, if I mention a community contributor's name, it's only in a positive light, and I've done that multiple times. I have no problem with talking about other community contributors. Some of them are better players than me. Some of them are funnier than me. that's all fine. If my content isn't compelling, then don't click. I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. It's not like, oh, screw you. That's not the point at all. I think I have always tried to be honest and upfront. But this particular community contributor had some good points. I'm not going to say the name. If you want to know what it is, you can go. There's not very many comments, so you can look at my Turtle quick review and figure it out pretty quickly. But it doesn't matter. He's a fantastic player. His content is good. I don't care for it necessarily 100%, but it is definitely good. But I cannot deny that he's an amazing, unbelievably good player. But what I will say about his take on most things is, in general, he's more interested in telling you what the greatest things are. And he will tell you up front that if it doesn't work in the current meta, then don't bother. Although he will also tell you, look, it's up to you whether you want to do this or not. And that's kind of what I do. And I think most community contributors do that. The going in stance or the going in position is, I'm going to give you my opinion. If you really love the game and you just want that thing, you're a collector, that's your play style, then by all means go for it. Go crazy. So the comment then being something to the effect of, look, you can't push this turtle. You shouldn't push this turtle. You shouldn't tell people to buy it or spend their money because it's bad for the game. There's too many premiums coming out too fast. The game needs a lot of work in areas that they're ignoring because they're greedy, trying to get more premiums pushed out the door. The meta is a mess because there's too many romple stomps and games don't last long enough and there's not enough skill in the game. All these things. To which point I go, fair play. Those are issues, absolutely. But I'm just not the kind of community contributor that's going to sit down and go, hey, look, fellas, the only way that you can get them to listen is to stop spending money. Yeah, I don't care about that, man. If you want to spend your money or not spend your money, I'm just going to comment on the passing scene like I always do. And if that's a problem, then okay, fair enough. Let me know. We'll talk about it. We'll discuss it. But I just thought that was an interesting dynamic, actually. And I've seen this a bit with the CCs, and I'm going to call back to the deal with the light tanks, where there was a lot of hyperventilating about how bad they are, at which point I played them, and I'd made some reviews, and then I've watched the numbers, and they're fine. Right? So all that was for naught, really, to be quite honest. But it does, again, call back to the fact that maybe that's not your cup of tea. If you're all about DPG and you want to tell people what the best tanks are, and fair play, because that's not a bad idea. It would be probably bad if I ran out there and said, you need to go buy the Turtle Mark 1 because look at this 5,500 damage game I got, and man, it is the goo. But that's not what I did. Not even close to it. So there you go. It really is, at the end of the day, the position you come into the game and what your play style is. I will fully admit that if I adopted a couple of their play styles, which happened to be a lot less aggressive than mine, especially early on, that I would probably play better and have better stats. Provided I could do it, right? I haven't done it, so I can't prove that I can do it. So I'll admit that right up front. But that's not the play style I like. I don't like sitting behind all my buddies and doing that kind of thing. I'd rather get up there and play the game a little bit. And I don't care if I get blowed up. It doesn't matter. But I guess the point of all of this is none. Ultimately, there is no point. We're talking about a damn pixel game. You know what? Let's get real here. But I mean, I guess the point of it overall is I think CCs come from different angles. And I think people also potentially believe that we have a little more pull than we do. Especially me. The particular guy we're talking about has a really big following. He clearly has a lot of pull, and he probably should because he has a big following. Not probably, he should. There you go. But I guess I get a little bit irritated by some of the hyperventilating and the sensationalizing of things. And I'm not saying it was gross in this case. Well, I'll just leave it at that. There's other past things that have happened that have been interesting. I guess I will call it interesting. And to some extent, you're trying to create traffic on your channel, and you do want to be passionate and get things going. And if you do have a passion for it and interest, and you are good and have valid criticisms and inputs, then you would like that to be heard. I got it. I do. But that's not necessarily me as far as attempting to be some kind of giant spokesperson. You know what I'm saying? So I would never call for, hey, if you don't like the game, then the only way we stop them from doing this is we stop spending money. Well, look, man, that is completely and utterly up to you, and I don't even feel like I even should say something like that, to be honest. Not because I owe Wargaming anything or I'm worried about them making me not a CC or something, but just because that's not my thing. That's up to you. If you're a collector and you want to buy every tank that comes out every 5 minutes, then go for it. And there is a limit at some point. Everyone has one. That if it got to such a point and I went, yeah, you know what, this is not for me anymore, then I would, throw in my papers and I'll tell them, hey, thanks a lot, shake their hands and move on, That limit has not been reached. I don't know what it is, to be quite honest. It's one of those, I'll know it when I see it. But if you cry wolf too many times, it diminishes your credibility. Let's just put it that way. If you cry wolf too many times, if you make too many bold statements, draw too many lines in the sand that get crossed that you never do anything about, at the end of the day, credibility starts to be lost. In Guido's opinion, which means virtually nothing. Anyway, that was a long, kind of disjointed discussion on it. I hope I got my point across. Frankly, this is a decent tank. I don't know what to tell you. In its element, if it's allowed to do what it does well, is it the greatest tank in the current meta? Of course not. Who would think that a 20-kilometer heavily armored casemate TD is going to be super amazing in today's meta? Nobody. Now, maybe a brand new player who doesn't know all that potentially could go, ooh, that looks really good. As a slight, did I already mention this, that they changed the stats on this right before they put it out? They decreased a bunch of the important stats like the gun handling, the reload time, the DPM. Not by a whole bunch, but a little bit. This is why I don't deal with test server reviews. There were a lot of people I saw replying on this and discussing it in the forum that said, ooh, I was really going to buy this, but then I saw the changes, so I kind of backed off. That's why you've got to be super careful about listening to people talking about how it plays on a test server, and also because test servers simply don't play according to the meta. They really don't. That's a whole nother subject. But I don't know, tell you, I did well in it. I liked it. Would I play it every single day? Probably not. If you're a assault TD, heavily armored assault TD kind of guy, it's probably right up your alley, to be quite honest. But I don't see why any of that is a big deal. I really don't see why that is a big deal, that, ooh, it doesn't fit in the meta. It's helping to ruin the game. I don't know. Do I think they're releasing too many premiums? Yeah, probably. They're probably coming at you too fast. There doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason. I would really have appreciated if a lot of these premiums had been built into new lines that you could grind through, which used to be kind of the point of the game. But I don't know. The Rubicon's been crossed on that one. This is now what we've got. And I suppose it's not a case of roll over and play dead necessarily, as just accepting reality. And if the reality's not cool, then, dude, I don't know how many games there are out there. There's a lot of other games. But hey, that's just my opinion and none of my business, right? Maybe it is my business, because here I am. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. All right, I'm going to edit this bad boy, send it out, start flaming away. Take your shots. I can take them, no worries. I know that's kind of sounding adversarial, and that's not really the point at all. I have enjoyed, the thing about this channel that I've enjoyed the most, especially the community that's built up around it, is just kind of honest discussion of what's going on in a pixel tank game, right? Let's keep the focus and the the understanding of the relative importance of what's going on here completely in focus. That it's a pixel tank game, and we can be passionate about it, but there's no reason to be psychotic, I suppose, about it. But what I've enjoyed is that everybody has given their opinion. They've been relatively reasonable about it, and we can have a discussion. And we can, in fact, despite the current mood out there at times, we can, in fact, disagree. It's okay. We can disagree, but I'm right. I'm just saying. All right, that's all I've got. That's it for Coffee Talk. Tomorrow will be the Turtle Mark 1 review, where I will tell you that you need to go buy a Turtle Mark 1 because it is a meta flexing kind of tank, okay? So just realize, best tank NA. There, you cannot go wrong buying the Turtle Mark 1. Even if it was $325.97, let's say even if it was $69.69, you should buy it, okay? Get out there, get the wallet open, get your credit card, buy the Turtle Mark 1 because you are probably looking at a 70% win rate easily with this bad boy, all right? And it will, in fact, save the game. It will save the game. All right, later. Oh man, this coffee's been really good this morning. Really good. French roast. What are you guys still here for? Go do something. Go destroy the game with your Turtle Mark 1. Also drive your IS-38. That will also destroy the game.